The Grant estate was the kind of place people wrote articles about. Architectural magazines hailed it as a modern marvel, a fusion of glass walls, marble pillars, and sweeping staircases that curved like rivers frozen in stone. From the outside, it was flawless. A mansion worth $60 million, built to impress, designed to intimidate. But inside its pristine halls, where light bounced off crystal chandeliers and silence echoed too loudly, there were secrets money couldn't polish away. The silence broke with the sharp, measured rhythm of heels against marble. Isabella Harrington Grant, Bella to her friends, Mrs. Grant to the staff, glided through the corridor like royalty. Everything about her was curated, her posture straight as a blade, her lips painted in perfect crimson, her silk gown trailing behind her like liquid fire. She moved as though the house itself bent to her will. Her hand brushed along the polished rail of the grand staircase as if to remind herself this was her kingdom. Then came the sound that shattered her illusion of control. Crash! The violent break of porcelain against marble echoed through the living room. Bella's eyes narrowed as she stormed toward the noise. Her heels struck harder, faster, echoing like gunshots in the cavernous hall. There, beside the ruins of a priceless Ming vase, stood a child. Marisol Delgado. Mari. 8 years old, with big brown eyes that glistened with tears and dark curls framing her delicate face. She looked like she had been carved from innocence itself, but in that moment, she was trembling. Her scraped knee oozed a thin line of blood. Her hands shook, clutching the hem of her dress. Bella's face hardened. "Do you have any idea," she spat, her voice low and venomous, "what you've done?" Mari tried to step back, but her heel caught against a shard of porcelain. I'm sorry, Mrs. Bella," she stammered, her voice small. "I didn't mean to. I just wanted to help clean. Mama told me I could dust if I was careful. But the vase slipped. I didn't." "Liar!" Bella's shout cracked like a whip. She took a step closer, towering over the child. "Do you think I'll believe that pathetic excuse? You're clumsy. You're careless. And do you know what that vase was worth? More than your mother will earn in her entire life." Mari's eyes widened, tears spilling faster. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "I'm sorry." "Sorry won't fix this," Bella snapped. She raised her hand, poised to strike. Her manicured fingers curled, the diamond on her ring catching the light as though even cruelty deserved to sparkle. Mari squeezed her eyes shut. And then a voice, sharp and commanding, cut through the room. "Bella!" The single word froze everything. Alexander Alex Grant stood in the doorway, motionless, his Bentley keys dangling loosely from his fingers. His suit jacket hung open, the tie he'd loosened after his board meeting slightly crooked. He had come home early, thinking he might surprise his wife. Maybe they could share a rare afternoon together before the next business trip pulled him away. But instead, he found this. His wife, elegant and cruel, towering over a frightened child. Bella spun toward him instantly, her expression flickering, surprise, then annoyance, then smooth charm settling back like a mask. "Darling," she cooed, her laugh airy, forced. "I didn't hear you come in." She gestured vaguely at the shards on the floor. Mari broke the vase. "I was simply explaining the consequences. Children need discipline, you know." But Alex didn't look at the vase. His eyes were on the child. Mari's posture screamed fear. Shoulders hunched, eyes darting between them, her small body trembling. This wasn't the look of a child who had made a mistake. This was the look of a child who had been made to live in fear. Alex's chest tightened. Slowly, he knelt so his eyes were level with hers. His voice softened. "Mari, are you hurt?" The little girl hesitated, glancing quickly at Bella, then back to Alex. Finally, she gave a tiny nod. Alex's gaze darkened. "Where's your mother?" "At the market," Mari whispered, her voice breaking. Alex exhaled, steadying himself. "Has Mrs. Bella spoken to you like this before?" The silence was heavier than the shards of porcelain on the floor. Mari's lip quivered. Her small fingers dug into her skirt as if gripping for safety. Tears slid down her cheeks. She didn't say the words. She didn't have to. The truth was written in her silence. Alex's fists clenched. He turned slowly toward Bella. Bella lifted her chin, defensive now. Darling, you're blowing this out of proportion. Children exaggerate. I was disciplining her. Someone has to. Rosa spoils her too much. Alex's voice dropped, low and cold. You call this discipline? Bella's eyes flashed. You wouldn't understand. You've never had to raise a child. Rosa lets her daughter run wild, thinking kindness will make her strong. It won't. Children like her. Children like her? Alex's tone was sharp enough to draw blood. Bella's lips curled. The daughter of a maid. Of course she needs structure. Order. Without it, she'll grow up useless, ungrateful. Someone has to teach her her place. Alex felt something inside him crack. For years, he had believed Bella was the perfect wife. To the world, she was elegance personified. At galas, she charmed investors with wit. At charity dinners, she dazzled with grace. She was the woman every man envied him for marrying. But now, staring at her sneer, hearing her venom drip so casually from her lips, he realized he hadn't married a woman. He had married a performance. The sound of the front door opening pulled him back. Rosa Delgado stepped in, balancing grocery bags. She stopped cold the moment she saw her daughter's bleeding knee, the shattered vase, Bella's stony glare. Mari? Rosa's voice cracked. She dropped the bags, rushing to her child. What happened? Mari opened her mouth, but froze. Her eyes flicked to Bella, fear tightening her throat. Bella smoothed her hair, her smile sweet again. Just a little accident, Rosa. Mari got careless. I was explaining the importance of responsibility. Nothing serious. Rosa's lips pressed into a tight line. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled Mari close. She didn't argue. She didn't dare. But Alex saw it. He saw the silent plea in Rosa's eyes. The fear. The years of it. Rosa, Alex said quietly, his voice steady but commanding, take Mari to the kitchen. Clean her knee. Rosa hesitated. Yes, Mr. Grant. She guided her daughter away, her hand clutching Mari's as though she might never let go again. When the kitchen door swung shut, the silence that followed was suffocating. Alex turned to Bella. The mask of charm had slipped entirely now. What remained was cold. Hard. His voice was low. How long has this been happening? Bella smirked, a glint in her eye. Oh, Alex. Don't be naive. You think today was the first time? You really don't know me at all, do you? Alex's chest ached. So you've been, what? Bullying them? Intimidating them? For how long? Bella shrugged as though it were trivial. Someone has to enforce order. Rosa is weak. She indulges the child, lets her forget her place. Fear works better. Fear teaches faster. Fear? Alex's voice rose, sharp. You terrify an 8-year-old girl and you call it teaching? Bella stepped closer, lowering her voice to a chilling whisper. Love is fragile. Love makes people weak. Fear makes them obey. And obedience is what keeps this house standing. Alex's stomach churned. Memories assaulted him, little signs he'd ignored. Rosa's polite but nervous smile whenever Bella entered the room. Mari's quietness, her habit of shrinking into corners. Bella's sharp tone when she thought no one else was listening. He had dismissed it all. And in doing so, he had failed them. The realization weighed on him like a stone. For 3 years, he had been blind in his own home. Bella smirked, sensing his turmoil. Don't look so horrified, darling. It's just the way things are. The strong led. The weak follow. It's always been that way. Your mistake is thinking you can change it. Alex stared at her, the woman he once thought he loved. He saw not a partner, not a wife, but a predator. And in that moment, he made a vow. This ends. Here. Now. The mansion carried a silence that no longer felt serene. It was the silence of unease, the kind that settled over walls after secrets had been pulled into the light but not yet spoken aloud. Every polished corridor, every chandelier that sparkled with calculated elegance, seemed to hum with a new awareness. The master of the house had seen what was hidden in the shadows, and nothing would ever return to what it had been before. He sat in his study long after midnight, the fire burning low, the scent of smoke clinging to the air. His mind replayed the image of a trembling child, her small shoulders hunched, her eyes swimming with fear. He remembered the cold sharpness in his wife's voice, the hand that had risen without hesitation, the cruelty that had revealed itself so naturally it was as though it had always lived inside her. He wondered how he had failed to see it, how many times he had mistaken silence for peace, obedience for harmony. The answers came slowly, cruelly. There had been signs. The little girl's tendency to vanish when laughter filled the halls. The maid's eyes that never met his whenever his wife entered the room. The false brightness in his wife's voice when others were present, a voice that dissolved into something colder the instant the doors closed. He had dismissed it all. He had told himself it was nothing. He had believed the performance because it was easier than questioning it. Now the performance had cracked. And what lay beneath was darker than anything he had imagined. The following morning, the household moved as though nothing had happened. The clinking of cutlery at breakfast, the scent of freshly baked bread, the quiet rustle of newspapers, every detail carried on with calculated normalcy. She arrived at the table radiant, her hair gleaming, her robe flowing like silk around her. She smiled the smile she reserved for the world, flawless and warm, and placed a gentle kiss upon her husband's cheek as if to erase the memories of the night before. He studied her, searching for the woman he thought he knew, and found only the mask. She poured herself coffee, spoke of plans for the evening, of guests who would attend their gala, of gowns and donations and appearances. Every word was polished, every movement rehearsed, and yet beneath it lingered a chill he could not ignore. He tried to speak of what had happened, but her response was as smooth as glass. A child's tears meant little, she said. Children were dramatic, prone to exaggeration, in need of firm correction. She dismissed his concern with a laugh, as though his very question were absurd. Discipline, she claimed, was necessary. Fear, she insisted, was stronger than love. The words pierced him. They were not a slip, not a moment of anger. They were a creed. She believed them. She lived by them. And now he began to wonder how much of their marriage, their life together, had been built upon the same foundation of fear disguised as devotion. In the days that followed, he did not confront her directly. He watched. He listened. He became a silent presence, a shadow moving through his own home. What he saw confirmed what the maid had whispered to him in the study. When she believed herself unwatched, the smile slipped away, replaced by the sharp edge of disdain. The maid's hand shook when she served her, her eyes darting nervously with every command. The child shrank into corners, her laughter stifled, her movements hesitant as though every step could trigger rebuke. But when guests arrived, the transformation was instant. The perfect hostess returned, her charm dazzling, her laughter like music. She floated through rooms on clouds of admiration, her words coated in honey, her eyes tender with feigned warmth. No one would ever suspect cruelty beneath that veneer. No one, except those who lived under her roof and bore the weight of her rule. One evening, when she left for fittings in town, he walked into the library, a room she often kept locked. The air smelled faintly of her perfume, a reminder that this space was more hers than his. He moved to the desk, opened a drawer, and found papers neatly stacked and sealed. What he discovered chilled him to the bone. There were letters, correspondence with other women of influence, wives of men who shared his social circles. Their words were sharp and congratulatory, praising her for her ability to maintain order in her household. They spoke of discipline, of control, of keeping servants in their place. They mentioned by name a woman called Eleanor Pierce, whose reputation stretched like an iron chain through the city's most powerful families. Eleanor's words were the most dangerous, filled with strategies that cloaked cruelty in civility. There were also receipts, quiet payments made to families who had once served in the mansion but vanished without explanation. Signatures that looked forged. Confidential agreements meant to silence complaints. Even photographs, yellowing at the edges, showing bruises on faces that were not his maid's but belonged to others who had come before. His heart pounded. This was not a single act of cruelty. This was a system. A pattern. A culture. That evening, he accompanied his wife to the gala, standing at her side as she dazzled the room with practiced perfection. He observed more closely than he ever had before. He saw the way she glanced toward Eleanor Pierce across the ballroom, a woman older but regal, her presence commanding. He saw the way they leaned toward one another, whispering in tones too low for others to hear. He caught fragments, phrases about loyalty, about fear, about silencing those who might speak. He realized then that his wife was not merely cruel, she was part of something larger. A network of women who wielded power not through love or respect, but through manipulation and fear. Their wealth and influence insulated them, their reputations untouchable, their crimes hidden behind walls of elegance and charity. The image of the trembling child returned to him. He thought of the maid who had begged him to protect her. And now he saw the full scale of the danger. If he remained silent, he would be complicit. If he spoke, he would be fighting not just his wife, but an entire circle built upon cruelty. That night, when the gala ended and the mansion returned to quiet, she found him in the corridor. Her smile was no longer for show. It was sharp, knowing. She accused him without words, her eyes gleaming with the certainty of a predator who sensed weakness. She told him she had noticed his watchfulness. She warned him that curiosity was dangerous. She whispered that he had no idea how deep the roots of this life went, how much power was woven into the fabric of their world. Her voice was low, confident, chilling. He did not respond with anger. He simply walked past her, his resolve hardening. That night, in the study, he pulled out his phone. He scrolled to a number he had not used in years. The name on the screen belonged to an attorney known for her ferocity, her refusal to bow to wealth or intimidation. A woman who had built her reputation on exposing the secrets others tried to bury. When her voice answered, he hesitated only a moment before speaking. He told her he needed her help. He told her it was about his wife. The line was silent for a breath. Then the attorney's voice, steady and strong, promised she would listen. And as the flames in the fireplace crackled low, he understood that the war had begun. The mask had slipped. The circle had been glimpsed. The unmasking had only just begun. The mansion's halls seemed colder now. Even the chandeliers, with their glittering crystals, could not reflect warmth, they only scattered light across marble floors that echoed too loudly, betraying every footstep. Outside, the night pressed against the windows, dense and suffocating, as though it understood the tension within. Alexander moved quietly, aware of every shadow, every creak of the old floorboards. He was no longer the unsuspecting husband, he had become an observer, a guardian, and a strategist all at once. But with this awareness came dread. Awareness, in his world, carried responsibility. He had seen the cruelty. He had watched the rehearsed smile dissolve into venom. He had discovered the hidden letters, the photographs, the receipts that outlined a network built entirely on fear. Now he understood the reach of that network. It was bigger than Bella alone. There were others. Powerful women who shared her ideology, her philosophy that fear was the only way to control those beneath them, those deemed lesser by social class or fortune. Eleanor Pierce was only the beginning. The first incident came unexpectedly. Mari was in the kitchen, trying to wash a small cup of spilled juice. Rosa hovered beside her, alert but tired. The cup slipped from Mari's fingers, sliding across the marble floor, the liquid spreading like a red stain. Before Rosa could react, Bella appeared from the shadows, her steps measured, deliberate. She reached for Mari, not in a gesture of help, but in one designed to intimidate. Her hand hovered just above the girl's shoulder, a threatening pause that sent Mari stumbling back in terror. The cup shattered against the counter with a loud crash. Bella's voice cut through the room, sweet and calculated, but with an edge that was unmistakably cruel. She demanded that Mari bend and clean every shard, inch by inch, while she observed. Mari's hands trembled as she obeyed. Rosa's own body tensed, but fear rooted her in place. She had learned from years of abuse to anticipate what Bella might do next. It was not merely punishment. It was a lesson in submission, a show of power meant to remind both child and maid who held control. Alexander, unseen, had watched from the doorway. The calm precision of Bella's movements, the way she calculated every step, every glance, revealed something far more insidious than mere temper. This was deliberate. This was strategic. And now he understood, Rosa and Mari were only pawns. The following day, Bella attended a luncheon with Eleanor Pierce and two other women he did not recognize immediately. The manor's security system had been bypassed, leaving Alex free to follow discreetly. From behind the hedges, he watched as they gathered around an ornate table set under a pergola, sunlight dancing across their expensive gowns. They laughed in sharp, rehearsed tones, their words polite to any outsider's ear, but to each other, they were predators speaking in code. One phrase repeated often, chilling in its casual delivery, they must learn fear. Another, never underestimate the value of a small accident. Alex's stomach turned. He realized in that moment that the network he had glimpsed on paper, through letters and photographs, was alive and operational. They shared methods. They trained each other. They cultivated fear like a garden, and the soil was the lives of those deemed expendable. Back at the mansion, the threat became immediate. A loose stair tread had been tampered with, almost imperceptibly, on the landing where Mari often ran ahead of Rosa. It wobbled at the perfect angle to trip a small child. Mari nearly fell, but Alex's quick reflexes saved her from a broken arm. He realized then that Bella's influence was not confined to words or punishment. She was willing to allow, even engineer, real harm. The following week, while preparing for another dinner, he noticed the garden gate ajar. It had been reinforced with a child-proof lock days before, yet someone had disabled it. Mari, carrying watering cans, wandered close before Rosa's attention, and Alex's intervention prevented disaster. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, a trap disguised as carelessness, but unmistakable in intent. Each day revealed a new layer of danger. A heavy flowerpot perched precariously on a windowsill. The knife rack in the kitchen positioned just beyond a child's reach, yet vulnerable to a slight misstep. Even toys scattered in hallways became potential hazards, designed to exploit inexperience and fear. Alex began cataloging every incident in his mind, noting the pattern, tracing the methodology. Bella had trained herself, perfected her household as a controlled environment of risk, ensuring that every misstep would teach obedience through terror. At night, he walked the corridors, listening for Mari's soft breathing in the bedrooms, ensuring that every path she traveled was safe. He monitored the garden, the kitchens, the staircases, every room where the shadows could be weaponized against a child. The mansion, once a place of comfort and wealth, had become a labyrinth of threats. In the midst of this, Alex found courage in subtle defiance. He began leaving small interventions, unnoticed but strategic. A chair shifted slightly to block a dangerous window ledge. A rug anchored with tape to prevent slippage. He documented every tampering, every near accident, understanding that evidence would be necessary if the situation escalated further. Bella, for her part, noticed the subtle resistance. She smiled less frequently now, the mask cracking at the edges when Alex lingered near her, when he appeared unexpectedly in hallways. Her phone conversations grew tense, the language changed from confident manipulation to measured caution. She began to realize that her husband had seen past the facade, that her network was not infallible, and that the very woman she had counted on to enforce fear, Rosa, might be protected, shielded, by his quiet vigilance. The first direct confrontation came one stormy evening. Rain pelted the windows, the wind howling like a chorus of warnings. Alex had returned early from the office, his coat still damp, and found Mari alone in the playroom. A heavy bookshelf had been positioned in such a way that it could have toppled, its base loosened slightly. He moved quickly to steady it, his mind racing. There was no question now, Bella had engineered this setup, hoping for a scare or worse. She arrived moments later, dripping from the rain, her expression that practiced combination of surprise and elegance. "Alexander, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice smooth but carrying an unmistakable edge. He did not answer immediately. His eyes tracked her movements, noting how her heels clicked on the hardwood floor, each step measured, each gesture deliberate. "I am ensuring that no one in this house is harmed," he said finally, his voice calm but firm. Her smile faltered, replaced by a sharpness in the eyes that no charm could hide. "You mean Mari and Rosa? You think you can protect them?" "I have already begun," he replied. "And I will continue." She laughed softly, almost cruelly. "You underestimate what it takes to maintain order. I have spent years mastering the household, ensuring that everyone knows their place. You are naive if you think a few precautions can undo that." Alex watched her carefully. Every movement, every syllable, revealed a mind trained in manipulation and cruelty. But now he knew the stakes. He could no longer be a passive observer. He could no longer assume that silence was safety. She would escalate. She would test boundaries. She would attempt to reclaim control through calculated fear. And so, he prepared. He enlisted outside help discreetly, contacting specialists who could assess risks to the household without revealing his own observations prematurely. Security systems were enhanced, cameras placed in blind spots, and safeguards put in place to anticipate accidents and tampering. Each intervention was subtle, invisible to the casual observer, but a safety net for Mari and Rosa, for himself, and for the future. The days became a tense choreography of watchfulness. Every meal, every errand, every social engagement carried the potential for danger. Bella's network remained active, plotting, speaking in coded phrases that he could barely trace. Yet every trap she set, every device of fear, was countered silently, meticulously. Despite the constant threat, Mari began to show glimpses of resilience. Alex encouraged small acts of courage, small moments where she moved unobserved and unafraid. Rosa, emboldened by his presence, spoke quietly in ways she had never dared before. And though Bella's eyes lingered on them with suspicion and anger, they began to learn the unspoken truth: they were not powerless, not entirely. By the end of the third week, Alex had compiled a detailed record: photographs, tampering incidents, near accidents, the subtle manipulations of the household environment. It was more than evidence, it was a blueprint of Bella's methods, a record of her cruelty in motion. He realized then that the mansion, this home of wealth and influence, had been transformed into a laboratory of control, and its subject had been Mari. But now, with awareness, vigilance, and preparation, he could begin to dismantle the web without immediate confrontation, without alerting her to the full extent of his knowledge. Bella, meanwhile, grew restless. She suspected observation, even if she could not trace it directly. Her conversations became sharper, her phone calls more urgent, her movements more deliberate. The storm that had begun quietly now raged with potential, threatening to erupt at any moment. And as he watched her from the shadows, he understood one truth clearly: this was no longer merely a battle for authority in a household. It was a war over innocence, over safety, over the very souls of those who had been trapped under her reign. And in this war, he could not afford hesitation. The mansion, once a fortress of wealth and status, had become a crucible. Within its walls, fear and courage clashed silently, invisibly, in a battle that would determine who survived, who suffered, and who emerged unbroken. And as the storm continued to batter the estate, a quiet determination settled over him: no trap, no accident, no cruelty would succeed. He would protect them. He would unmask the circle. And he would ensure that the darkness that had thrived unseen for so long would be brought fully into the light. The web was tangled, dangerous, and lethal. But Alexander Grant had learned its pattern. He had mapped its dangers, and he would confront it, piece by piece, until the threat was dismantled entirely. In the silence that followed the storm, the mansion seemed to hold its breath. Outside, the wind died down, the rain ceased, but within, the tension remained, a waiting, a readiness, a knowing that the unmasking was only halfway complete. The mansion no longer felt like a home. Its walls carried a silent, suffocating weight, the weight of cruelty that had gone unchecked for years. Every door, every corridor, every polished surface seemed to whisper warnings, reminders of the subtle traps and deliberate hazards carefully laid for the small inhabitants who had no way to defend themselves. Alexander moved through the halls with a measured precision, his steps almost invisible against the marble floors, each movement calculated to ensure safety, each observation catalogued for the meticulous record he was building. He had learned the patterns. He had understood the methodology. Bella's cruelty was no longer an abstract terror, it was a living, breathing system, each element designed to intimidate, harm, and enforce submission. But now, having witnessed the full extent of her capabilities, he was prepared. And preparation, he knew, was the first step toward counterattack. The first strike of the counteroffensive was subtle. He began with surveillance, carefully placing discreet cameras in hallways, staircases, and rooms most likely to be tampered with. Each lens was hidden behind elegant vases, books, and light fixtures, ensuring they could not be detected by the casual observer. He monitored every movement, every interaction, every word spoken when he was not present. Within days, patterns emerged, moments of heightened cruelty, the timing of her manipulations, the quiet threats embedded in ordinary gestures. Then came the traps themselves. The loose stair tread, previously unnoticed, had been reinforced, the bookshelf positioned to fall had been anchored. The flower pot precariously balanced by the window was secured. The knife rack in the kitchen was moved to a location impossible for a child to reach. Every physical threat Bella had constructed was neutralized, not with confrontation, but with invisibility, silent countermeasures that ensured Mari and Rosa could move freely, safely, without alerting the perpetrator to the fact that her control was being dismantled. Yet Bella was not easily deceived. She sensed the changes immediately, the subtle shift in the household dynamics, the quiet vigilance that had taken hold. Her steps grew more deliberate, her gaze sharper, scanning rooms as though anticipating unseen eyes. The moment she realized her carefully orchestrated system was being undermined, a ripple of anger passed through her, cold and sharp, like ice sliding across glass. The escalation came quietly at first. Mari's dollhouse, once a place of innocent play, became a vector of terror. Its upper level was subtly loosened, the balcony threatening to collapse with the slightest pressure. Alex noticed the hazard immediately, intervening before Mari's curiosity led to disaster. Rosa's heart raced as she realized the danger had been intended, a deliberate test of fear and obedience. But Alex remained calm, teaching through action rather than words, ensuring safety while documenting every maneuver. Bella, sensing resistance, became more audacious. One evening, during a dinner designed for social performance, she intentionally left sharp knives within reach of Mari, under the guise of preparation for serving food. Her eyes watched carefully, tracking reactions, measuring hesitation, gauging fear. Alexander intercepted, subtly removing each weapon and placing it in secure locations. Mari and Rosa observed his movements with a growing sense of awe and tentative trust, their understanding that safety could exist quietly and visibly, beginning to take root. The psychological component remained as potent as the physical threat. Bella manipulated with precision, her words cutting deep, her tone oscillating between sweetness and menace. She reminded Mari and Rosa of their place, of the fragility of their positions, of the consequences of speaking or moving incorrectly. Each insult, each veiled threat, was calculated to instill a sense of helplessness. Yet Alex documented it all, knowing that the record would serve as both evidence and shield. The mansion became a chessboard. Bella moved pieces with deadly precision, testing limits, probing defenses. Alexander countered silently, repositioning safeguards, intercepting threats, ensuring that no accident could reach its intended victim. He mapped her strategies, anticipating every escalation, every method of harm, understanding that her intelligence and ruthlessness required not brute force, but careful strategy and timing. As the days passed, the tension intensified. Bella began targeting Alex directly, testing boundaries in subtle ways. Objects were moved to create trip hazards for him, personal items were tampered with, and moments of isolation were orchestrated to catch him unawares. Each attempt was met with calm intervention, careful avoidance of detection, and meticulous documentation. He began building a timeline, a record of deliberate endangerment, intending not only to protect Mari and Rosa but to expose the full extent of Bella's control. The climax of the counterstrike began with a planned exposure. Alexander invited a trusted civil rights attorney, known for her unflinching resolve and experience with domestic abuse cases, to the mansion under the pretext of a routine consultation. Cameras were positioned in strategic locations, capturing Bella's actions without alerting her to their presence. Within days, a pattern of deliberate endangerment emerged, near accidents, manipulations, and psychological coercion, all meticulously documented and timestamped. Bella, growing increasingly agitated by the subtle resistance she sensed, escalated further. Mari's school uniform was intentionally stained, the iron left on in a dangerous position, furniture positioned to obstruct exits. Each action was calculated to provoke fear, to test obedience, to assert dominance. Alexander intervened swiftly each time, yet maintained the appearance of inaction, preserving the element of surprise necessary for the final exposure. The mansion, once a symbol of wealth and control, became a battleground. Every corridor, every room, every shadow was a potential site of confrontation, of strategy, of survival. Mari and Rosa, initially paralyzed by fear, began to display small acts of courage, moving more confidently, trusting in the unseen protection surrounding them. Alexander guided silently, teaching resilience through observation and careful intervention, allowing them to reclaim agency in measured, deliberate steps. Bella's network began to unravel as the countermeasures took effect. Her confidence waned, her carefully orchestrated fear tactics disrupted by interventions she could not detect. The subtle manipulation that had held Mari and Rosa in place for so long was failing. Her phone calls grew terse, conversations with allies increasingly defensive. The awareness that her control was slipping created a dangerous volatility, making her actions more unpredictable, more hazardous. Alexander recognized the risk. Escalation was inevitable. Bella's intelligence and ruthlessness were unmatched, but her reliance on fear as a tool created predictable patterns. By observing, documenting, and intervening, he gained the upper hand without direct confrontation. The mansion itself became a controlled environment, a stage upon which every action and reaction could be anticipated, every danger neutralized before it could reach the intended victim. In a decisive maneuver, Alexander orchestrated a scenario designed to expose Bella fully, ensuring that her actions could no longer remain hidden. Utilizing hidden cameras, carefully placed sensors, and the presence of the attorney, he created conditions where her manipulation and endangerment would be captured in real time. The plan relied on precision, timing, placement, and patience. Any misstep could allow her to regain control, but the potential payoff was complete exposure. The moment came on a stormy evening, the mansion shrouded in darkness, the wind rattling windows like the echo of impending revelation. Bella moved through the halls with her customary grace, unaware of the observation points, unaware that every deliberate hazard she positioned would be recorded. She left objects strategically to endanger Mari, manipulated the environment to provoke fear, and enacted psychological intimidation, believing herself unseen, untouchable. Each act was captured in full detail. Every deliberate misstep, every moment of intimidation, every calculated threat was preserved, timestamped, and documented. Mari and Rosa, guided by silent signals and subtle interventions, moved safely through the hazards, unaware of the full extent of the plan but protected in ways they could trust instinctively. By the end of the evening, the exposure was complete. Alexander had not only prevented harm but had created a record so thorough that Bella's control, her methods, and her network of intimidation could no longer remain secret. The mansion, once a crucible of fear, had become a stage of revelation. In the quiet that followed, as the storm subsided and the rain faded to a gentle patter against the windows, Alexander realized the significance of the moment. The counterstrike had not yet ended, but the balance had shifted. Bella's power, once absolute within the walls of her carefully constructed domain, had been undermined. Mari and Rosa were safe, at least temporarily, their trust and protection growing. And the evidence, meticulously compiled, would serve as the foundation for justice, for exposure, and for dismantling the web of fear that had governed the household for far too long. The mansion exhaled, as if the walls themselves recognized the shift. Shadows no longer carried implicit threats, rooms no longer held hidden dangers. The storm outside mirrored the tension within, the wind a reminder of the battles fought and the vigilance required. And in that quiet, Alexander understood one immutable truth: the war was far from over, but the first decisive blow had been struck, and the circle's web, intricate and lethal as it was, had begun to unravel. The mansion's halls, once echoing with silent terror, were now filled with a tension unlike anything before. Shadows no longer hid subtle threats but bore witness to a storm that had been brewing for months, a storm prepared, orchestrated, and now unleashed. Alexander moved with quiet confidence, every step precise, every thought measured. The tools of observation he had deployed were not merely instruments, they were silent allies, documenting the truth in ways no deceit could overcome. Bella had sensed the shift in the household, her awareness tinged with anxiety that had grown into panic. She moved through the corridors as if sensing eyes where none existed, her gaze darting, her gestures calculated, yet no longer assured. Every step she took, every object she placed, was intercepted, neutralized, recorded. She had underestimated Alexander's vigilance, his intelligence, his patience. The day of reckoning began early, before sunlight could fully breach the horizon. Mari and Rosa, their faces calm but alert, followed Alexander as he conducted a final sweep of the mansion. Each room was inspected, every corridor secured, and every potential hazard neutralized. The careful choreography of months of observation had transformed the mansion from a stage of fear into a fortress of safety. The first confrontation came at the breakfast table, a ritual that had once been a theater of intimidation. Bella, in her morning regalia of elegance and practiced civility, assumed her usual posture, the poised mask of authority firmly in place. She did not immediately notice the subtle cameras positioned in corners, nor the microphones hidden amidst the decorative accents. Every word, every gesture, every nuance was being captured. Alexander spoke first, his voice calm but carrying the weight of inevitability. "Bella, we need to have a discussion about what has been happening in this house." Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of annoyance crossing her features, but she maintained her composure. "Discussion? Alexander, surely you don't mean to overreact again. Everything here is orderly and well managed. Mari and Rosa are safe, any concern you have is unwarranted." He ignored the dismissal. "I've documented every instance of deliberate endangerment, every hazard you have created, every manipulation designed to instill fear. It is all recorded." A sharp gasp escaped her lips, the mask faltering ever so slightly. The room, once dominated by her presence, seemed to shift. The balance of power had been altered, the unseen witness now undeniable. Without warning, Alexander activated a discreet live feed. Screens embedded in the living room walls flickered to life, displaying footage of Bella's prior actions, the tilted bookshelf ready to fall, the precarious flowerpot, the knife dangerously positioned within a child's reach. Mari and Rosa, seated nearby, watched silently, their eyes wide but unafraid, trusting the unseen protection surrounding them. Bella's composure fractured visibly. Her voice rose, a mixture of disbelief and fury. "Alexander, you can't, these are taken out of context. They don't represent anything." Alexander's tone remained steady, unyielding. "Every action, every hazard, every moment of manipulation is in context. And you, Bella, have underestimated the power of documentation, the inevitability of exposure." The attorney, Claire Navarro, stepped forward, her presence authoritative, unwavering. She had reviewed the footage, assessed the timeline, and prepared for this exact moment. Her voice carried the weight of law and justice. Bella, the evidence is undeniable. Your deliberate endangerment of Mari and Rosa, your psychological manipulation, your orchestration of fear and harm, constitute a clear violation of their safety and rights. The network you have built to control them will be dismantled. Bella's face flushed, her carefully constructed mask of social poise collapsing into anger and panic. She rose abruptly, her movements sharp and uncontrolled, a storm finally unrestrained. You can't do this. I have authority here. This is my household. You think you can take everything away from me? Alexander's gaze did not waver. No, Bella. You created this reality. You are accountable for your actions. And now, the truth will prevail. The live feed continued, showing conversations she had believed private, threats uttered under the assumption of secrecy, plans articulated with confidence that no one was listening. But thousands were watching. Board members, social contacts, and members of the wider community were privy to her deliberate cruelty. The network of power she had relied upon for years crumbled in real time. The next wave of reckoning was public. Messages flooded in, inquiries from organizations where she had volunteered, from charities, social clubs, and professional associations. Her influence, meticulously cultivated over decades, was unraveling. Invitations rescinded, memberships revoked, roles stripped. The social currency she had depended upon was worthless against the weight of documented truth. Meanwhile, Mari and Rosa, once terrified, now observed the collapse of her reign. Mari, her small hands clasped tightly in her lap, felt a quiet sense of vindication, a feeling that safety and justice could exist in a world that had long taught her otherwise. Rosa, similarly, felt a cautious relief, understanding that the careful, patient strategies Alexander had implemented had shielded them from harm while ensuring the ultimate exposure of cruelty. Bella, desperate, attempted one final maneuver. She reached for the legal documents Alexander had prepared, intending to manipulate their content, to create false narratives of self-defense and control. But Claire Navarro intercepted, her authority unyielding. It's too late. Every attempt to manipulate evidence has been anticipated and accounted for. The record is complete. There is no escape from accountability. The confrontation escalated physically only in the sense of tension, a standoff of wills. Bella, unable to assert her control, faltered, her gestures desperate, her voice sharp but ineffective. Alexander remained composed, a silent fortress, guiding Mari and Rosa through the storm. Each act of aggression was anticipated, each move countered, every potential threat neutralized without direct harm. By mid-afternoon, the full exposure had achieved its intended effect. Bella's network of manipulation and control, the very mechanism she had relied upon to dominate and intimidate, lay in ruins. Her social status, her influence, her carefully curated image of civility and authority were all dismantled. The mansion, once a theater of fear, became a stage of revelation, a testament to the power of vigilance, preparation, and moral courage. Mari and Rosa, though young, understood the magnitude of the moment. The fear that had once held them in silent submission was replaced by cautious confidence, an understanding that justice could prevail even against seemingly insurmountable odds. Alexander's presence, silent, careful, and unwavering, had ensured their survival and empowered them to witness the collapse of a tyrant. Bella, finally realizing the futility of resistance, sank into an armchair, her energy spent, her composure gone. The carefully constructed image of dominance and control lay in tatters around her. Legal proceedings would follow, social ostracism was inevitable, and the lives she had sought to dominate were now free from her manipulations. The mansion exhaled once more, but this time in relief, a tangible shift in the air, a sense that the shadows that had once concealed danger were lifting. Alexander walked through the corridors, ensuring that every room was secure, every hazard neutralized. Mari and Rosa followed, their trust in him complete, their fear replaced with a quiet resilience. As evening fell, sunlight filtering through the windows with a golden glow, the final elements of the counterstrike were set in place. Evidence secured, public exposure achieved, and the network of fear dismantled, Alexander allowed himself a moment of reflection. The battle had been long, dangerous, and intricate, but it had succeeded. Innocence had been protected, cruelty exposed, and justice enacted with precision. In the final quiet, Mari reached out to Alexander, her small hand resting against his. "Thank you," she whispered, a simple phrase carrying immense weight. Rosa echoed the sentiment, her voice calm but filled with emotion. Alexander nodded, understanding that words were insufficient to capture the gravity of what had transpired. Bella remained in the mansion, her fall from power complete, the tools of manipulation rendered useless. Alexander knew that the aftermath would require continued vigilance, legal enforcement, and careful attention, but the decisive reckoning had been executed flawlessly. The mansion, once a prison of fear, had been reclaimed as a sanctuary of safety, truth, and justice. And as night descended, the storm outside finally ended, leaving a sky of clarity and quiet. The battle had concluded, the circle of fear broken, and the reckoning complete. Alexander, Mari, and Rosa emerged unscathed, their bond strengthened, their resilience tested and proven. The mansion, now a place of vigilance and protection, stood as a testament to the power of courage, strategy, and unwavering commitment to justice. The story, once dominated by secrecy, manipulation, and fear, had reached its resolution. The victims were protected, the abuser exposed, and the world now aware that even the most carefully constructed web of control could be dismantled when intelligence, preparation, and moral courage converged. The reckoning was final. As we reach the end of this captivating tale, we hope you've been transported to new worlds and inspired by the characters and stories that have unfolded before your eyes. Timeless Stories is more than just a YouTube channel, it's a community of story lovers who share a passion for exploring the human experience through the art of storytelling. By subscribing to our channel, you'll be treated to a wide range of stories that will captivate your imagination, spark your creativity, and inspire you to think differently about the world around you. From timeless classics to modern tales, our stories will transport you to new and exciting worlds, introducing you to characters that will stay with you long after the story ends. But that's not all. By joining our community of story lovers, you will get access to exclusive content, including behind-the-scenes insights into our storytelling process, sneak peeks at upcoming videos, and opportunities to engage with other fans who share your passion for stories. So why wait? Subscribe to Timeless Stories today and join our growing community of story enthusiasts. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest uploads, and let's keep exploring the world of stories together. Whether you're a fan of adventure, romance, science fiction, or fantasy, we have something for everyone. Our stories are designed to inspire, educate, and entertain, and we're committed to bringing you the best content possible. So come along with us on this journey into the world of stories. Subscribe to Timeless Stories now, and let's discover new worlds, meet new characters, and explore the infinite possibilities of the human imagination. Subscribe now and get ready to be transported to new worlds.